Do you realize how much hormones affect your life? Have you gone through a difficult menopause season? Maybe you went through menopause with little discomfort. In today's episode, we'll be talking about menopause and the importance of understanding our hormones for a healthy life.
Welcome to the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, a place where Christian single women aged 50 plus connect. I am your host, Janine Jordan, a Christian confidence coach and leadership mentor in Alberta, Canada.
And I'm your co-host, Ellie McCormick, a Christian longevity coach and mentor in the USA. Being single women over 50, we know what it's like to feel overlooked, to have unrealized dreams, to experience the challenges of singlehood, and to be concerned about what our future will look like. We couldn't find anything online for single Christian women over 50, so we created Jesus People Sisterhood just for you, a place where sisters encourage and empower one another through the last third of life, because you are a treasure trove of wisdom and of exceedingly great value. This is an authentic community, a supportive family, with other women on the same journey where Jesus is the center of it all. Here you will find real talk, real community, and real sisters.
Join us as we discuss building relationships, whole health, and growing spiritually. We'll review helpful books and articles, chat with guest speakers, share success stories, and have some laughs along the way. So grab your favorite beverage and we'll get started.
Welcome, sisters, to this episode of the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, the only podcast specifically for single Christian women over 50. Today, we give a shout out to our sisters in Washington. Thank you for listening. Today, we are discussing menopause and understanding our hormones. What prompted this episode was I was listening to Dr. Mindy Pelz talk about her book, The Menopause Reset, which we'll be discussing today. Dr. Mindy Pelz is a chiropractor in California, and she practiced for many years and helped thousands of women through menopause and herself also. She first started noticing she was going through perimenopause when she was in her early 40s and struggling with all kinds of symptoms that we have in menopause. She needed help. So as she treated herself and treated women over the years, she discovered or developed 5 steps, 5 lifestyle steps that could minimize the symptoms, and then made it so that when you got to postmenopause, that you didn't have those symptoms anymore. You were enjoying life again as you got through that perimenopause bump. And so I heard her talking about this, that she wrote this book, and it was something that she wanted to have so that you could give it as a birthday present for a 40-year-old woman, and she could read it in a weekend or a day or something. It's a short book, and then have the tools to help her go through menopause. What got me was that she was saying that if you are in postmenopause, which I am, and you still have these symptoms, that it's because you didn't follow the 5 steps in that book. And I still had hot flashes. I still have brain fog. I still have a lot of these symptoms, belly fat, all these different things that happen in menopause that I was like, "Oh, I'm going to get this book." So that's how I decided. First, I listened to it on Spotify, and again, it's another book that if you are a member, I guess is what they call it, on Spotify, you can listen to the book for free. And then I also bought the book and read it. And that's started me on this journey to overcome the menopause symptoms that I still have, even though I am 10 years post-menopause now. So I've been putting in the 5 steps mentioned in Dr. Mindy's book. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So we'll talk more about the book in a moment, but I think it's healthy and important for women to share their menopause experiences and to help one another through what can be such a difficult time of life. Not
Mhm.
for everybody, but a lot of women. And definitely to take what knowledge we've gained to minimize the symptoms that hinder us. So, Janine, why don't you share what your menopause experience was?
Okay, so actually, I had very few symptoms and I didn't struggle with it very much at all. I do specifically remember one period of time, I can't even tell you how long it was, where I was teaching, and I remember at its precisely every noon, I would say to the students, I got to open the window because it's just too hot. I do remember that. And as far as the rest of the things, I do not have any specific terrible memory of it, or it wasn't a particularly tough time where I noticed anything. I know many women who did not have that experience, but I was blessed. And my mom didn't have a problem with it, and neither did my mom's mom. So I never did ask my dad's mom, but it seemed in our at least along our generational line that it really wasn't a problem.
Did you ever ask your mom about it? I mean, how did you know that she didn't have much of a problem?
I did ask her, yeah,
Mm,
and
okay.
the whole thing was she didn't have a lot of trouble with it, like I said, and neither did my grandmother, according to what my mom said. I never did ask my grandmother directly either, but that was just something I don't think you would do. But my mom sort of said that she'd said no, there was no history of it in our family of really having a tough time with it. So I was blessed.
Mhm.
Like I said, I didn't really suffer. I was also really busy during that time too.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I was single parenting and teaching, and so my life was pretty hectic at that time.
Yeah, me too. Mine was very hectic too. And it tends to be. So what prompted you to ask your mom then if you didn't have, if it didn't?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I don't ideally remember when we were actually talking about it, but it seemed to me that it was before that time ever came about, and so I can't really be certain as to what actually happened. But all I can say is that I remember her saying, "Oh, I didn't have any trouble with it," and quite frankly, I didn't as well. So yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know how many women do ask their mom. I
Hmm.
mean, I guess it depends on your relationship. And my
Right.
mom, I don't know. It's like menopause was like this thing that you knew was coming, but then you just never realized how old you were. Did you?
That's
I
true.
mean, right?
That's true.
It's like always something in the distance, and then all of a sudden you're
Boom.
there. And like for
Mm.
me, I didn't really notice any symptoms until it was right at the time when I was 49.
Mm.
And I separated, that was right when I separated from my spouse, and I was going through so much stress with
Oh
that.
yeah.
I mean, I had so many other things to worry about, like were I and my 4 children going to live on the street? Is that
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just couldn't think about it. And my mom was still alive, but I just never asked her about that. I don't think I
Yeah.
ever, and it was just like a really crazy time because she was dying of cancer and I was going through this divorce and it was
Mm.
just like another thing you just had to suffer through,
Right.
which I
Mm.
just feel like that's sad, you know?
Mm.
And I just feel like
Mm.
now later on, now that I'm postmenopausal, like, 10 years or something,
Mhm.
is that I feel like I talk about that more with my friends now, and it's kind of a joke about, oh, hot flash or something,
Yeah.
right? It's a joke, and then maybe there might be a little bit of complaining. But now that, you're postmenopausal, the symptoms aren't as severe as like perimenopause.
Mm.
But it's still like we don't really talk about it. And I think for some women, it's just the symptoms are really bad and
Mhm.
it's something we should talk about.
Right. I
And
agree.
then
Mhm.
finding this book, well, I had already read Fast Like a Girl, which is a later book by Dr. Mindy Pels, and which we're going to do an episode in the future on.
Mhm.
because that had a big impact on my life. So anyway, it just reading this book and just like I didn't really know anything about hormones. I heard about them, but I didn't
Yeah.
really understand them, and I really had no interest in understanding them, honestly.
Hmm.
And then reading this book, I'm just finding out, gosh, I should have paid attention to this. It's important. It's like not knowing a woman's anatomy is how it feels like. If you had no
Right.
idea what, well, I have a vagina and I have a uterus and this is how babies, it's the same. I feel like it's the same thing of
Right.
not knowing anything about hormones because they
Hmm.
have such a powerful effect on your body
Right.
and on your health. And if you understood them, if you understood how to change your lifestyle based on those hormones, that you would just have such a better life, a healthier life, a more enjoyable life, and relieve some of these bad symptoms and things that happen and prevent all kinds of diseases. So,
Right. And I think alleviate some of the fear because you'd be understanding what your body was going through and maybe what to expect or, right, to have a little bit better understanding. Hmm.
a couple things I'd like to share, or I don't know, several things I'd like to share, is just some definitions and understanding because, like, I've
Hmm.
heard of perimenopause, but I don't really know what that is. And menopause, okay, what exactly is menopause and what exactly is postmenopause? So, just a little description is that perimenopause could be a period of 10 to even 15 years before you reach menopause or that menopause transition year when you completely stop having a period. In perimenopause, you can have all those menopausal symptoms when you start to not feel right. You could start having hot flashes, or you could start having sleep disturbance, or you could start to have this fat on your belly that wasn't there before. There are symptoms that I'm just not going to go into, but that can start in perimenopause.
Hmm.
And then there's the menopausal shift year is that in perimenopause, you could have a period and then maybe go 6 months without one and then have it again. But it isn't until you reach where you go a whole year without having a period. And after a whole year is when you are considered in postmenopause.
Right.
And you can still have symptoms, as I have had these kind of menopausal symptoms, even after you're postmenopausal, because it's related to the decrease in hormones in your body. Your estrogen levels and your progesterone levels and your testosterone levels, and that go down. And so your body is affected by that. And that's what causes these different symptoms, among other things. So we're going to talk about that because sex hormones are not the only hormones that are affecting your body. So I've said that the perimenopause is about a 10 to 15 year period. Most women go through menopause where they go to postmenopause around their mid 50s, 52, 53, 54, 55. That's normal. But they are finding that women are going through menopause at younger and younger ages. So we
Mm.
think maybe that's environmental toxins, things like that, and a rushing lifestyle. But one of the statistics that is of interest and that affected Dr. Minnie Pels was the highest percentage of women who commit suicide is in the ages 45 to 55.
Mm.
That's the decade when women are going through perimenopause.
Mhm.
If you think about that, this is when women are hormonal, having all
Right.
these issues, and that's the time that they're most likely to take their life. So it's a very serious thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that. So let's talk about the book. The Menopause Reset is about resetting your lifestyle and resetting your health. It gives women the tools to understand and balance their hormones. And it's not just about overcoming the symptoms, hot flashes, mood swings, sleep disturbances, and the belly fat you were talking about before. This is important because diseases like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, heart disease, diabetes, dementia, and Alzheimer's more commonly happen to women that are in their postmenopausal years. Here are the 5 lifestyle changes that make up the menopause reset. Step 1, change when you eat. Step 2, address what you are eating. Step 3, repair your microbiome. Step 4, detox yourself and your life. And step 5 is stop the rushing. Each step can build on the next, like walking up a staircase. Hmm.
But before we elaborate on each of those steps, let's talk about hormones. Because
Hmm.
we're not just balancing the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. There are other hormones that we need to look at first because they affect those sex hormones. In the book, Dr. Mindy shares the hormonal hierarchy. It's a key concept that Dr. Mindy got from Dr. Anna Cabeca in her book, The Hormone Fix. Now, ladies, don't let your eyes gloss over and your attention veer off here. It's important for us to understand our own bodies and hormones, to understand what's happening in us so we can take care of ourselves and be healthy and help the sisters that come behind us. The hormone at the top of this hierarchy is oxytocin. You recognize that hormone? It's
You
the
bet.
love
Yeah.
hormone. It's what you felt as a mom when you held your baby or when you fell in love. You can get oxytocin when you snuggle with a pet or when you help or smile at someone. Dr. Mindy says when you get lots of oxytocin surging through you, you take a major step forward in balancing your sex hormones. How awesome is that?
The next hormone is the dreaded cortisol. Dr. Mindy says that cortisol gives you the belly fat you hate, makes your blood sugars spike, and will wake you up at 2 in the morning to tell you there's a crisis going on. Every time you are stressed, you get that dose of cortisol. And cortisol can show up even if you're busy doing fun activities. Hmm. According to Dr. Mindy, cortisol is the hormone of the rushing woman. Cortisol has such a powerful effect on your sex hormones that there's an entire chapter of the book on it. If you don't get your cortisol under control, you'll struggle to lose weight or sleep well. I can relate to that.
Yeah. Underneath cortisol is insulin. It's the weight loss hormone. It's released from your pancreas when you eat. And if you eat a high sugar, high carb diet, you will keep releasing insulin.
Mm,
Often your body can't handle all the insulin you release into your system through your diet, so it stores it as fat. And
mm,
that fat can sit there for years until you force your body to go access it. If you struggle to lose weight during and post menopause, you will need to have solutions to encourage your body to find the glucose and insulin it stored years ago in fat. Do you remember, like, I think it was like the 1990s, I had a lot of friends that went on this diet where you were not allowed to eat anything with white flour or white sugar in it. Do
mm.
you remember that? I don't know, maybe your friends in Canada. Um,
It sounds vaguely familiar, actually.
like
Yeah.
we would have been in our late 20s, early 30s.
Mm,
And I remember all these friends going on that diet and losing all this weight.
right.
And then what happened? Is then
Yeah.
went back, then they stopped the diet and then they went back to eating whatever they ate and just gained the
Right.
weight back. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's this idea. I mean, there was some truth to this is that getting rid of all the sugar and the carbs.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now we have the keto diet, right? Yeah.
Yes. And that she promotes, well, she calls it ketobiotic.
Oh, okay. Well, at the bottom of the hierarchy are your sex hormones. They are at the bottom because they can be dramatically influenced by the hormones above. The sex hormones that affect you the most are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Tell me a little bit about those, Ellie.
Okay, so estrogen, we're all familiar with that, and it gets a bum rap according to Dr. Mindy because there's really good things about estrogen in our body. And of course, it's when those levels of those sex hormones start to go down is when we know we're going through perimenopause or when we're starting to suffer those kind of symptoms. It's because of that change in hormone level. And there's different types of estrogen. And the one that's estradiol, I think is the type. That
Hmm.
one is the one that what causes menopause, I guess let me just back up, is that when you stop releasing eggs. So when you get to a certain age,
Hmm.
we're all born and we have so many eggs, right?
Right.
And that's it. So when you get to like you've released all those eggs,
Hmm.
then that estradiol goes away because there's no more eggs. And it's what
Hmm.
caused us to release those eggs, right?
Okay. Yep.
And so that goes away, and then that's going to affect you. And then progesterone is the hormone that was responsible for like the shedding of, making that lining in
Hmm.
your uterus for accepting the egg. That's, basically your menstrual period, right? As
Right.
releasing all of that if you don't get pregnant. And testosterone basically the gets released when you're ovulating, when you're about to ovulate, and it's what gives you makes you desire sex, right? Because
Hmm.
it's designed that way so
Right.
that you're going to be interested at the time you're ovulating, right? So that you will get pregnant.
Hmm.
And then also it makes you build muscles, but there's one other thing, and I can't think of what it is now, but one of them is that it's what causes you to build muscles. And I want to say it makes you aggressive. It's the things we associate with men, right?
Right.
It's that this power and this aggressiveness, and it makes you get things done. It's like not a negative thing because I think sometimes when we say aggressive or power, we can think of it in a negative way. But it's like
Right.
the time that you feel powerful and you get stuff done, and also it what builds your muscles. So a lot of times you think older women can't build muscle
Right.
because of that loss of testosterone. But, you can, still can.
Right.
So a lot of this book talks about how things you can do to keep up those sex hormones, right?
Okay.
Right. To
Wow.
replenish them to a certain extent. I mean, they're not going to be at the level that they were before menopause.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So getting back to the 5 steps, though,
All right.
now that we've explained those hormones, and remember, it's a hierarchy. So it
Hmm.
goes from oxytocin, and sex hormones are actually at the bottom. And that's how they're affected at the top, starting at the top. So,
Okay.
getting back to the 5 steps, step one is changing when you eat. And this step is about intermittent fasting, which probably a lot of people have heard about, which
Hmm.
is you're incorporating this fasting lifestyle.
Right.
It's part of your lifestyle. And so intermittent fasting is condensing that window of time that you eat each day. So instead of get up in the morning, start eating at 7, and you're eating and snacking and doing everything until 7 o'clock at night
Right.
or even later and then go to bed. Well, no, you're making it that you're only eating between 8 and 4 or something like
Hmm.
that, right? This
Okay.
intermittent fast. So the intermittent fast is from the late afternoon until sometime in the morning when you eat breakfast.
Right.
And I think one of the most important things is, oh, she does also, Dr. Minnie does talk about longer fasts in the book and how the length of a fast affects the body because fasting is actually a healing state. I think we all think that when you're fasting, like you're suffering and somehow it's doing damage to your body. But in reality, what they find is when you fast, your body actually starts repairing and detoxing and healing your body. It's a healing state. It's actually good for your body. And depending on the length of the fast, there's more and more benefits
Hmm.
depending on what your body does to heal itself. And that's just important to know. And it's interesting because as Christians, we know in the scripture it talks about fasting.
Right.
And it's a spiritual fast, but it's like when God tells us to do something, like you think of the kosher laws, is that often they're things that are good for us, right? And I know some people who get upset because some people have abused the whole fasting and prayer. There's whole ministries that have abused that. But I like Derek Prince used to point out the scripture of when Jesus said, when you fast, not if you
Right.
fast, but when you
Mhm.
fast. It's something that all of us should do at some point. Although I know that depending on certain health conditions, that people would have difficulty or maybe shouldn't at seasons in their life not fast. This
So it'd be important. Sorry.
whole topic of fasting, as I think I mentioned earlier, that Dr. Mindy Pels wrote a book called Fast Like a Girl, and we are going to do a future episode on that. It's a best-selling book, and it's all about the benefits of a fasting lifestyle that just wowed me. I'm just really a big proponent of that. So we'll share that in a future episode, and it's actually what brought me to this book, The Menopause Reset.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've heard some things about fasting and how good it is for you, and that's that's something that we need to take into consideration for sure. But you should probably do that with in consultation with your doctor if
Mhm.
you have certain medical conditions. So step two is to address what you're eating. The book promotes focusing on macronutrients, not calories. Micronutrients are proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. We want to eat a lot of healthy fats, proteins, and less carbohydrates. Good fats are olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, grass-fed butter, raw nuts and nut butters, and ghee. The book also talks about estrogen and progesterone building foods.
Step three is repair your microbiome.
Hmm.
The microbiome is the term used to describe all the microbes or bacteria living in and on you. And you have trillions of different microbes on your skin, in your gut, surrounding every organ, and living in your mucous membranes.
Hmm.
There's good bacteria and bad bacteria. And we all always think about the bad bacteria. So we use antibacterial products and medications to kill the bad bacteria. But these products also kill the good bacteria that we want in our bodies. One round of prescribed oral antibiotics can kill up to 90% of your good bacteria. So this step is about eating nature-made foods and boost your good bacteria and staying away from man-made foods and products that make it difficult for your good bacteria to thrive.
Right. So think of things that are natural, not things that are overly produced, right? Box
Mhm.
foods, things like that. Okay. Step four is detox yourself and your life. In this step, Dr. Mindy shares all the toxins that are in our environment and accumulate in our bodies, especially in our brains. We've probably all heard the word carcinogens, which are cancer causing substances. Here, a quote from the book. We live in the most toxic time in human history. In the past 60 years, over 87,000 new chemicals have entered into our environment. These toxins have entered into our food, water, our soil. They're in our furniture and our beauty products and woven into the fabric of our clothes. We are even exposed to toxins in the dental chair and with our yearly flu shot and in medications. These toxins are bioaccumulating at a faster rate than ever before, and the human body struggles because of it. So, for this step, we want to look at our environment, the products we use, the food we eat, and start finding some natural, healthier alternatives to lessen the toxic load on our bodies. So again, using natural substances and finding natural products for beauty and hair products, those sort of things. So, that's really interesting. I didn't realize that 87,000, that's quite a load.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in our lifetime. It's just,
Hmm.
and I think that's the other thing is as older ladies, even when we think of like the junk food from the 1980s,
Right.
it didn't have all the chemicals and stuff in it that the same product has now. It's incredible what they put in food, what they put in everything
Hmm.
that it's
Yeah,
10
it's more
times worse.
toxic. Yeah.
Yeah, 10
And
times.
in smaller boxes. We get less too.
Right. Yeah, that's why. the closer something is to nature made is better or God made,
Right.
right?
Mm.
Because there's now 87,000 more chemicals. Even like clothes, there's this whole move to wear 100% cotton, organic cotton clothing. And I'm like,
Mm.
it's hard, but where
Right.
and when you can, you try.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Can't possibly avoid everything.
Yeah. Stop the rushing
Mm.
is step 5. So some years ago, Dr. Libby Weaver wrote the book Rushing Woman Syndrome, and it became a term that a lot of people understood and related to.
Mhm.
So are you a rushing woman? I think
Oh,
you are. You
definitely.
are, Janine. You are a rushing
Yeah,
woman.
yeah. Hmm.
Many of us live busy, overscheduled lives that keep our brains in a state of fight or flight. That's what
Mhm.
happens. We're rushing around trying to do all the stuff and trying to keep all the plates spinning and trying to avoid the next possible disaster. And
Mhm.
that's that rushing woman syndrome. But I think also is that maybe you're just under a lot of stress with
Mm.
money worries or
Right.
loneliness.
Mm.
Loneliness, oh, so hard on your health. Or
Mhm.
you're just fearful of your future as a single older woman. And
Mhm.
that I put myself in the latter category because I don't think I have periods of rushing, but it's not constant, not like you, Janine.
Hmm.
My stress is worried about finances, worried about what's going to happen. And I think a lot of our ladies,
Mhm.
at least from the market research, is we're worried what's going to happen to us
Right.
in our old age. We're entered the last third of our lives. What's going to happen to us? Are we going to have enough money? Who's going to take care of us if we get very ill? Where are we
Right.
going to live?
Mm.
Right?
Yep.
What friends, what loved ones are going to be around us? And
Mhm.
that causes a lot of stress,
Mhm.
right?
Sure. Mhm.
So in this step, Dr. Mindy encourages women to slow down,
Mm.
schedule some downtime, and take practice vacations until you can take a real one. Because sometimes it's really hard for us to take a vacation. So
Right.
she suggests, okay, we'll just say this morning, I'm going to take a vacation, just practice putting everything aside and having
Mm.
that downtime and that rest time and just get a massage or
Right.
something that is enjoyable that but isn't requiring you to do something.
Right.
That's really hard for me.
Mm.
And then she says, get daily doses of oxytocin, hugs,
Mm.
laughter, hanging out with friends, petting animals, and random acts of kindness. You can do things like, touch yourself, and you can still do things for other people, and that still gets you oxytocin. And of course, as Christians, we know to meditate on scripture and spending time talking with the Lord, casting your cares upon him. Sometimes I have all these worries and I physically take my hands, put them at my shoulders, and then I just take this movement of like throwing the
Mhm.
cares off of my shoulders. And I say, okay, Lord,
Mhm.
I'm casting those on you
Right.
because we just tend to just carry them. And he
Mhm.
says, cast your cares upon him, for he
Mhm.
cares for us. And just
Yep.
spending that time in a peaceful fellowship with Jesus and with other believers. We have this wonderful, beautiful relationship with the Almighty, all powerful, all knowing God, and we need to
Mhm.
take advantage of it. That in this book, these people are not believers. It's not written from a believer's perspective, and they don't have that, but we
Mhm.
do.
Right.
Praise Jesus for that.
Mhm. Well, I think we were talking about, I'm sure you can get an oxytocin fix, right? From just the feeling that you get when you're spending time with the Lord and you just feel supported and heard. And I
Hmm.
think that that's probably something that we can look forward to as believers for sure. And then I guess the book apparently has a bonus chapter on effortless sleep. And you say that it's worth the price of the book alone. So, the bonus chapter explains how incredibly important sleep is with strategies on building an effortless sleep lifestyle. So, that might be a good reason just to go pick up the book just for that chapter,
Oh, yeah.
because apparently it was a good read.
Yeah. And I think so many of us struggle with sleep.
Mm,
So many people struggle with sleep. So that was an excellent chapter.
hmm
So, ladies, I hope this information has been helpful to you. This is just an overview of this very helpful book that is really an easy read. And I want to encourage you sisters to get informed on caring for yourselves and understanding hormones and going through menopause. Let's not let more generations of women struggle through menopause without help or information. Some women suffer severely through this change of life. This shouldn't be a time of mystery and suffering and people not really talking about it except a few complaints or joking,
hmm
but a time for sisters to support one another and help ease the negative symptoms.
hmm
Let's learn and turn around and help the sisters coming behind us. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please share any thoughts that resonated with you from today's podcast episode in our private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community. Start reaching out to other single women and create your local group of Jesus People Sisters. Please let us know about your group to add to our directory by contacting us at support@JesusPeopleSisterhood.com.
Have you had a good experience with a business? They've treated you honestly and helped you at a reasonable price? Please let us know. We would like to start a directory of JPS friendly businesses. Let's care for one another.
Be blessed by him who is able to protect you from stumbling and to make you stand in the presence of his glory, blameless and with great joy. Until next time. Hey, sister, before you go, thank you for listening. If you found value in today's podcast, the best way to say thank you is by leaving a 5-star written review at Apple Podcasts. That raises us in the rankings and helps other sisters find us too. And please tell a friend or post it on your social media. If you're a single Christian woman over 50, this podcast was created specifically for you. The Jesus People Sisterhood is your community to find support and friendship with other sisters who can understand. Be sure to follow us on your podcast app and join our free private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community.
Jesus People Sisterhood has also started a private Facebook group for housing and co-living opportunities. You can check that out at Jesus People Sisterhood Senior Housing. You can also find us on Facebook at Jesus People Sisterhood and individually for Janine at riseupcoachingandconsulting.com and for Ellie at samaramountain.com. And ladies, this is the necessary disclaimer. Our podcast content is for informational purposes and does not constitute professional advice from mental health, medical, legal, financial, or other areas. The opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the hosts. It is our heart that this podcast will be a blessing to you. Together, let's build a powerful sisterhood with Jesus. Make a friend, add a sister, across the border and around the world.